3, hit it!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And if you like the things we talk about in these podcasts and you'd like to learn more, we offer a free basic course, which you can check out at michaelneill.org/basic course. And that'll give you more of a sort of a philosophical underpinning for the kinds of things I talk about each week. The title of this week's podcast comes from something that the Scottish mystic Syd Banks used to talk about. And he would often say in his kind of folksy Scottish way, I won't do the accent, you know, when the good Lord made us, he gave us a free will and a free mind. And one of those, those two things, a free will and a free mind, actually, in my experience, are worth paying a little bit of attention to what they are and what are the implications of having them to the extent that we have them. Now, free will. There's a lot of debate in spiritual circles about whether or not we really have free will or if everything is preordained and for the purposes of this, we're just going to assume we have some degree of say in what we do or don't do in our lives. And anyone who says we don't, well, I encourage them to make me punch myself in the face without touching me. And I'm pretty sure they won't be able to do it because whatever it is that allows me to not punch myself in the face without somebody grabbing my fist and thrusting it, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about free will. I actually quite like, there's a psychological version of it they call free won't, which points out that thoughts actually come into our mind before we notice them. There's a lag of like a microsecond or something between when a thought, the electrical impulse of a thought can show up on a monitor and when we notice the thought. And so we don't have any say in what comes to mind, but we have say in how much time and attention we give it once it comes to mind. We have a lot of say in which thoughts get hold of our mouth and get hold of our hands, and which ones just stay as thoughts in our mind. So that's what I'm pointing to when I talk about the free will side of things. And as we're going to see as we explore, it's a mixed blessing. We think of free will as something that is amazing and wonderful, and in some ways it is. But in other ways, it's why life is harder for us than it is for a tree. It's harder for us than it is for a sunflower. It's harder for us than it is for many animals who don't have to think about what they're going to do because they're just following their nature. They're just following their instinct. They're just following their inner guidance, not in words, but just sunflowers know exactly where to look, wherever the sun is. Acorns don't have free will. They're always going to become oak trees. They're never going to become aardvarks. So there's a simplicity to not having free will. But I'm pretty sure the upside outweighs the downside. Now, by a free mind, what does a free mind mean? Well, a free mind is just pointing to the fact that we can think anything at any time, in any moment, no matter how weird or appropriate or inappropriate. And I'm sure you have had many inappropriate thoughts at inappropriate times. And sometimes they turn that into a psychological problem and they say, I have intrusive thoughts. But an intrusive thought is just a product of a free mind that doesn't have to only think what it's supposed to think when it's supposed to think it. So again, a bit of a mixed blessing. What a free mind allows us to do is to dream. It allows to imagine things that do not yet exist, and in doing so, bring them into being. A free mind also means we don't have to think anything. We don't have to think the same things today we thought yesterday. It's a wonderful story. A colleague of mine, Dr. Mark Howard, who was the head of the addiction department at one of the big hospitals in the United States, and he talked about the most miserable woman he ever worked with, and Mark is the kindest man. So when he talked about this woman as miserable, you know she was tough. And I'm going to make up her name. I did Dolores. But I remember him telling the story about just getting frustrated and just kind of saying, Dolores, are you ever happy? I said, yeah, Dr. Howard, every morning, first thing when I wake up. And he went, really? And she said, yeah. She said, I wake up and I just feel kind of grateful to be alive, but then I start thinking about all the things that have gone wrong in my life and all the mistakes that I've made and everything that's gone wrong and all the people that aren't around anymore. And they both started laughing because they both heard it at the same time. She was using her free mind to think about absolutely miserable things and make herself absolutely miserable before she even started her day. And of course, once she saw that, because she had free will and a free mind, she didn't have to keep thinking it. And in fact, you kind of already know that's true for you, because there are things that other people think about all the time that you just never think about, right? There are people who think about, like most of the day, they think about food. It's all they think about. They're obsessed with eating and weight and diet. Now, you may be one of those people, but you also may be somebody who just never even occurs to you. I remember for years, I did not think about sleep ever. Like, I would hear people talk about sleep and sleep things, and I was like, really? You're reading books about sleep? Like, don't you just close your eyes and go to sleep? And then one day I stopped sleeping. And then I started thinking about sleep a lot. So you already know that there's no prerequisites in how you use your mind. And so what that opens up is an incredible amount of freedom to use your free will and free mind in ways that really work. And I'm just going to make a couple of suggestions. One of the most helpful things I have learned to do with a free mind is to sort through what is worthy of my continuing to think about what's in my head and what isn't. And I have a very simple rule of thumb. If you listen to this podcast, you can probably say it with me. If something that you're thinking doesn't help and doesn't feel good, you don't have to keep thinking it. But if it does help, if it does work, and it does feel good, you absolutely can. And so the beauty of a free mind is you don't have to keep thinking things that don't help and don't feel good, and you can keep thinking things that do help, that do work for you, and that do feel good. And one of the best uses of your free will is to align your will to, and we can use different words for it here, to align your will to your inner sense of direction, to align your free will with the kind of guidance that guides the flowers and the plants, to the intelligence behind life, whatever you perceive that to be. St. Francis of Assisi's famous prayer, Lord, make me an instrument of thy will. Let me use my free will to align with a higher will. George Bernard Shaw, the playwright, talked about that this is the true joy in life, to be used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, to be a force of nature, to, in other words, align your free will with a deeper will. In Taoism, they talk about the flow of life, following the flow of the Tao, following the way of life. We can use our free will to align with that flow of life, to slow down to the speed of life, and to see what wants to happen through us, with us, for us, and from us. So I encourage you this week to just play with these two ideas and notice what you notice. What do you notice when you stop assuming you have to think about certain things, and you just notice instead, is the way I'm using my free mind, is it helping? And does it feel good? And if it's not, you don't have to keep thinking it. And if it is, you don't have to stop. And then just for grins and giggles, this week, if it's not something you're used to doing, if it is something you're used to doing, keep doing it. But if it's not something you're used to doing, see what happens if you listen to yourself. Not to the voice of the should in your head, not to the voice of the supposed to, not to your to-do list, but to your actual inner sense of knowing, the wisdom within. What's next? What's now? What wants to happen? and follow it. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.